Hi everyone, welcome to episode 4 of Blue Collar Hockey Talk. My name is Wes. I'm here with my friend Scott, and we're here to talk Leafs and the NHL. How you doing today, Scott?
Wes, I'm doing all right, man. I'm doing all right. I mean, a little bit of somber news coming through Leafland, but all in all, it's a hell of a day in sports on the good side of things. So, hey, how about yourself, buddy?
I'm doing all right, man. Like you said, it is a busy day. Championship Sunday for all of you who are NFL fans. And like, man, I got this to represent one of my teams, and that's I just hope they win, man. It'd be awesome. Yeah, going back to what you were talking about, it is a sad day in Leafland. George Armstrong passed away, man, at 90 years old. Obviously, we never saw him play, but he was the last guy to captain the Maple Leafs to Stanley Cup. He won 4 Stanley Cups in the 60s. He wore the blue and white for his entire career. His nickname was Chief because he was one of the first players who was of Indigenous descent to play in the NHL. He played 1,187 games, 296 goals, 417 assists over 21 seasons with the Leafs. And he was a captain for 13 years. He also got in there 26 goals and 34 assists in 110 playoff games. He was 90 years old when he passed away.
Well, I mean, listen, when you've got a guy like, captains like Dave Keon passing along lines, I mean, like you say, we didn't get the pleasure of seeing him, but I mean, we do get to live in Leaf lore. And I mean, one of the beautiful things about being a Leaf fan is having such deep roots in such a storied franchise. And I mean, when you're talking about character guys and you're trying to build character championship teams, that man was a character captain and championship 4 teams. Do you know what I mean? So when you got Dave Keon passing along messages like this, he'll be missed. A great teammate, a great captain, a great teacher. He was a funny guy to be around, the life of the party. He was the last one of us to carry the cup off the ice and the last to score a goal in a cup final. I mean, it's a legend. And I mean, it's a sad moment when legends pass, but I mean, it's sad in a very special way, you know. So, yeah, man.
Yeah, he seemed to always be like Mr. Leaf, man. You see him at all of those big events like pre-game ceremonies to drop the puck. And like you think of the guys he played against, like those Montreal teams that were stacked with the Richards, and man, like he won cups against them. And like the last cup they won, like they were one of the oldest teams in the league, and they were considered to be the underdogs that whole season, and they won the cup.
Yeah, well, I mean, like we're talking about a guy that came right up through the entire organization, right from the very first contract he was to sign. You know, when you've got George Armstrong coming up through the Marlboros right onto the Leaf squad, he was not only a player, he was a scout, he was a coach, he was a mentor. He did something that, if you really think about it, this is quite the feat. And this isn't just let's not just talk about him as a captain of the Leafs. He was the coach of the Junior A Toronto Marlboros, and he coached them to a not just one Memorial Cup, but he coached them to back-to-back Memorial Cups. Now think about why that's tough. After you win a Memorial Cup, your team is completely stripped. You have players that are ready to go. You have the best players in the farm system. They're all going to be graduating. And then he did it again with a new group the very next year. You know, like, I mean, the guy, he was a character guy. He knew how to braid it right through. And 75 years with an organization, I don't know many other guys who could say that in the entire NHL. Mario Lemieux's trying right now. He's on his way. You know, that's it. King Clancy, like, we're talking pretty big names and only a few of them. So hats off to George Armstrong. Class act, man.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It is a sad day, but you know what? We gotta celebrate his life and everything he did.
Gary Bettman released earlier today. The National Hockey League family is saddened to learn of the passing of George Armstrong. For 70 years, he represented his beloved Maple Leafs and the entire NHL with class and distinction as a player, coach, executive, and ambassador. A humble man and revered leader. Armstrong captained the Leafs for 12 seasons, including to 3 Stanley Cups in 1962, 1963, 1964, and the stunning 1967 title, and scored the final goal of the original 6 era in Game 6 of the 1967 final. Inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1975, Armstrong had a passion for the game that was equaled only by his enthusiasm for interacting with fans across this city and province. Our game will miss him dearly. The NHL extends its deepest sympathies to George's wife, Betty, their children, grandchildren, and the entire Armstrong family. Take a moment of silence here for Captain George Armstrong.
Well, that definitely was big news that came out of this weekend, man. And getting back to hockey, there was some other news that came out on Saturday. Probably one of the biggest trades in the last few years, man. Patrik Laine and Pierre-Luc Dubois have switched teams, and it's like you're going from Columbus, Ohio, to Manitoba.
Yeah. I mean,
like,
atmospheres, man. They haven't upgraded huge there, but I mean,
yeah,
hey, pick your poison.
yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, so the trade was Pierre-Luc Dubois, third round pick, and the Jets also retained $1.75 million of Laine's salary. And then the Blue Jackets got Patrik Laine and forward Jack Roslovic. Man, what a trade. It's just like you don't see too many guys that went in the draft back to back getting flipped later in their careers, eh?
No, like I can't really even think of an example off the top of my head of anything quite like this. Like this is like a moving Tyler Seguin kind of a deal. Do you know what I mean? And I haven't seen anything quite like it since then. But I mean, hats off to how Torts handled the situation in Columbus. Because apparently he didn't diminish the value in the player any because, well, Winnipeg was in a similar situation in regards to having to just make sure that the lay of the land was well right across the board. So yeah, it's a huge trade, man. Like, Torts stood his ground, and I loved it because look at how James Harden was handled in the NBA. I wish the NBA would handle players like Torts just handled Dubois. And now, let's see if maybe that helps Dubois in the long run. I think it'll help Columbus's dressing room in the long run. And now they've got Laine. I mean, man, what a stud coming into that team. And that'll be a great dynamic between him and Tortorella.
I think it'll be interesting for sure, man. I think I wonder if with Laine they're just going to be like, man, you're here to score, just go score. Like, when he came into the league, he was said to have the best shot next to like Ovi, which is crazy to think, right? And he came in flying. He got 40 goals his first year. He's a phenomenal player, and it's just too bad that another guy. This is left the Winnipeg Jets, right? Like Teemu Selanne. It's Teemu Selanne 2.0, and just another Finnish flash just getting out of that city. And best of luck to Laine, but to replicate that Winnipeg fan base that loves you and follows you, I don't think it's going to happen again in his career.
No, and you're going into Columbus where, I mean, no, like he was a rock star if he wanted to be in Winnipeg. He was a stud. But then you're going out into Ohio where people don't know who just got traded out of the team, like Dubois, who? Maybe I'm being a little rude there. I know they've got a fan base, but in all fairness, it's not the same. There's not that hype. I mean, there's no whiteouts. There's, I don't know.
So who do you think won the trade?
Who do I think won the trade? Personally, I think that I think Columbus is going to come out as the winner on the trade. And I say that because Dubois was walking through a room to the point where he was on another planet. Like, I mean, like Torts felt the need to bench this guy and he didn't seem to care, I don't know. I'm not saying that Laine's got a great attitude either. I've heard a lot of stories about him even coming up through the juniors, where he had to be really groomed when it comes to the temperament of the game. Slamming doors, slamming sticks, all that stuff, and getting sour grapes, so it'll be tough. But when you hear that Winnipeg retained salary, they also threw in a pretty decent player tossed in there as well.
But
It
Jack
wasn't just one.
Roslovic wasn't going to play for them again. Like he said, he didn't report this year. He was just done. So
Yeah, I guess that's a throw in. Okay, you're right on that. But I mean, I don't know. I guess it's one of those things where we're just guessing right now. I'm throwing a dart at the dartboard, but I honestly think that when you've got Laine going into Columbus, he's going to put up the 40 goals, and Dubois. We'll see how that goes. I think it'll be great for both teams. If we're really be honest, I think the change of sceneries can really help in some instances, and this could really rejuvenate both players. Not saying that they were playing garbage hockey or nothing, but I think that they'll maybe respark themselves. Maybe not Laine going to Ohio, but I think that Dubois just getting out of Columbus maybe was his goal. And he's got some great mentors that he's going to on that Winnipeg team. And Paul Maurice is a coach. Like, we're talking about two good coaches, man, like getting these players. So, I mean, the same argument could be these are two coaches that lost these players. But I don't know.
I can't say I disagree with you more, man. I think the Jets won this trade. Look at their centermen now. They got Scheifele, Pierre-Luc Dubois, and Paul Stastny.
Okay.
Like that is a three-headed beast up the middle of the ice. They probably have the best center iceman in the Canadian division now. 1, 2, 3. Right? Like it is going to be so tough to get through all three of those guys.
Down the middle, they're deep as deep can bet. You're 100% correct on that. Time will tell, man. Time will tell.
And the last bit of news I want to get to is Joe Thornton's injury finally was released to the public. He's got a rib injury and he's going to be out for a month, man. That's too bad, eh? I don't think he's going to get to his 50 points this season.
Well, okay. So it depends on how we're talking here. Okay, too bad in which way? Personal attributes? Yeah, that sucks for a few things. I mean, the guy's close to a lot of different numbers that maybe I don't actually think he cares about. So that's an awesome thing about Joe Thornton. I love that this guy's likely sitting there doing no hard work, no sour grapes to it. And we're going to get a guy that's going to maybe originally we were worried about how are the legs going to hold up in this kind of a season, this grueling, grinding season. We've now just given a guy a month off, and I'm not trying to say it's a good thing. He didn't want it. I mean, I'd have loved to have seen him in every game. We're better with him in the lineup. But let's look through the leaf-shaded glasses and say we'll have a healthy, fresh Joe Thornton going into some seriously important games and ramping up intensity. I think it'll be good. I think it'll be great, and it'll allow us to kind of see what we got in our taxi squad too.
That is a great way to look at it, man. I am just like heartbroken that we don't get to see him. Because like a month of the season is 15 games probably. That's a big chunk of the season. And like I want to see him in the blue and white as much as I can.
The biggest place that I want to see him, and luckily seeing as it's the 2 to 4 weeks and the way that they're running the season, we're still going to get the benefit of him in the room. And something that I love seeing him around the team for are instances like, let's say after the Edmonton game, the first Edmonton game, okay. When Matthews was interviewed after the game, he brought up how he thought that they maybe played to lose, and that he didn't really agree with that or didn't like that they were just covering a couple of guys. He was quite clearly and in the public questioning the system that was put in play for that 60 minutes of hockey. And I didn't realize it until the other day. I was watching the replay of Keefe's interview. And when he got asked about it, he rolled his eyes, kind of scoffed at it. And I mean, to say that there was absolutely nothing there would be turning a blind eye. It wasn't much, but I hope that somebody like Joe Thornton would say that can't happen out there. Like let's be pros about this. Like if you do have something to say it. And come up with a plan on why you think you should say it, but not in the public like that, And that's what I like about Joe Thornton. What I hope he brings to the team is that kind of character and credibility to kind of mold our guys, so that kind of stuff doesn't get said in the media. It's nothing big, but it starts at something, and we got to squash it before it grows into something bigger.
Well, we got some thoughts from our contributor Tim. What does he have for us this time?
So our contributor Tim here, he provided us a few thoughts. I thought it was a solid week of games. Good, strong compete. I like how Freddie responded after the first week. Last time I talked about seeing more compete from lines 3 and 4, and we got it. Mikheyev seems to have found his stride after his injury last season. I like Simmons up on the third line. I think he's had a little more jump and added some muscle on that line. Going into the season, I wanted to see how the Leafs D would shake out, and I'm very impressed. I don't remember the last time where they have been keeping the shots against under 30 most nights to start the season. Wes, we were just talking about this the other day, man. I mean, I mean, think about the seasons past. How many times were there glaring red flags of this can't continue? You can't sustain this kind of winning percentage when you're doing this, when you're doing that. And I feel like Tim nailed it on that. Like we definitely have shored up a lot of areas, and we definitely have worked on different systems because we're playing against really solid hockey teams that have potent offenses, and I think we're showing that we have the ability to actually have a system in place here.
Yeah, absolutely. They've looked better than I thought they would look. Is the God's honest truth, from my opinion, man. And you know what? I'm glad that they've kept the shots against like under 30, just about. I think the last two games they've just gone over 30, but you know what? The Leafs have been defending leads then, and you know the last few minutes of the third period, that's when teams really push, and then they get a bunch of shots, and they're not necessarily all dangerous shots, but they're just throwing it at the net and hoping for the best. So I agree that I'm happy they're under 40.
Me too.
The past few seasons, it was 40 plus all the time, and like they got a bit of a system now, so I can't be happier about their D.
To see Anderson get a second star as a goalie that has 32 saves, you know, instead of 45 saves, like it's huge. Like, I mean, let's have that be the heavy workload. Let's let that be the big nights, you know. I'm with you, man. And like, you know, like another thought that Tim had there, and I want to lead it off with no soup for you, you know, like Mr. Mikheyev, like he is seriously looking good this year. He's flying on the ice.
Yeah, but I am super impressed with him on the penalty kill. He seems to get away like once or twice every game, and he just gets a partial breakaway or gets to kill a lot of time. And you know what? Those are both really important things. Man, I think he's a reliable penalty killer. I hope he can just put it in the net a bit more, man. Like tonight, he had a chance at the empty net and it didn't go in for him, but he needs to pad his stats a bit, because you know what the sad thing is like the way we look at the season at the end of it is we look at a guy's stats and we're like, oh, he got X number of goals, X number of assists, but it doesn't say like how many times he prevented a goal or how good he was in certain other areas. And we need to really look deeper into players than just like goals and assists, because on the Leafs, the first two lines are so stacked that the other two lines aren't going to get equal opportunity to show what they can do.
Well, I mean, and without getting deep into it, I mean, that's, I guess, where if we got into Corsi talk, we might be able to maybe get a little deeper into it. But you're right. For the typical guy that's just standing chatting about sports, it's goals, assists, how did they make out? Look at the stat line. So, I mean, yeah, you're right. But I mean, with him having the chances like he has right now, he's going to keep getting the ice time. I think that the puck's going to start going in there for him, because really it's like this is our Tyler Ennis or our Mason Raymond of the year, but with a whole lot more upside. And let's hope that upside happens. Like, I just think like Dubois obviously thinks highly of the guy. He spent Christmas with him last year in the hospital, you know, like it was, there's a bond between this team and that player. And I think that if he keeps pushing it, man, like, and playing like he is, that puck's going to get in the net. And if he could keep shutting down the penalty kill, our special teams, our penalty kill numbers they look great through the first few games here in the season, man.
Yeah, they absolutely do. And talking about the games, which I think that Oilers game on Friday night, you know, a 4-2 win. It was the first game without Joe Thornton. Matthews also missed that game. They gave up a shorty, but at least they scored on that power play as well to get it back.
Listen, you know, I'm highly impressed with Johnny Toronto. Mr. Tavares has been a great captain of this team so far this year. On the mic, on the ice, on the bench, I feel like he's leading by example. 2/3 of the top line are out of the lineup, and I feel like him, Marner, Nylander, you know, like, I mean, there's a lot of credit to go around, but I mean, I want to start at the captain because he shoulders the blame when it's there, so I want to give the credit while it's there too. And he's playing seriously great minutes. Every shift seems like it's a good shift. So top to bottom. And another thing that Tim had mentioned, and we'll talk about it right now with our game and reviews, our defense looks great too. You know, so to play against Edmonton, to have two MVP caliber players on the ice, plus a very dangerous lineup, I'm pretty proud of this D squad, man.
Yeah, I think they did a really good job against the Oilers in the last two games, right? Like McDavid got 1 goal. I know Draisaitl got 2, but you know what? Those guys can go into video game mode and just light out the team any given night. So I'll take what they gave up any day of the week. It was something too. Like Marner, I see they trust so much. You know, he was on the ice in the last few seconds just to kill the clock, and he got that empty netter with 1 second remaining. So happy for him in that game. And then the game today against the Flames, it was a 3-2 win. And speaking of Marner, he got his 300th and 301st career points, man. He's only played 307 games.
You know, man, like Marner has had a hell of a start to his career here in the blue and white. For a guy to come in and say that he wants to be here, well, you look like you want to be here. And as a Leaf fan, I'm happy that he's here. Like, this is fantastic to watch this kind of talent on the team, a guy that seemingly bleeds blue and white. I mean, this is a kid that played mini sticks with my brother-in-law, true story, in the arenas in Clarington, you know, when he was a kid. My brother-in-law was his mentor when he played for the Toros. So, like, this kid is pretty cool to see come right up through the ranks. And I say, kid, I'm sorry, hats off. Marner, you're a magician with the puck, bud, so keep it up.
Yeah, man, I think he does get a raw deal in Toronto. Like his contract talks were a bit dicey, and they got out in the public. But you know what? I find this is the thing about sports is like, man, it's not my money. Just make a team good. Like put the right guys on the ice and get them to be competitive. And I just want to step back from it and just hope that they're as good as they can be. Well, just FYI for all those of you wondering, Matthews has 291 points in 288 games played. In 19 games fewer, Matthews is at 291 points. Matthews needs 9 more points to get to 300 career points. So he has another 12 games to get it, and he's a point-a-game player.
So if Matthews plays to his career average, he's going to become the third youngest Leaf to reach 300 points.
Absolutely.
But if he has a couple of slumping games, then he can pat Marner on the back and say, "Hey, bud, way to go! You made it there first."
Exactly. Yeah.
I like internal competition, and you know they've got it. Come on now.
For sure they have it, man. Especially one being the center and one being a winger, right? Like both highly touted picks, and you know it's been one of those things of like whose team is it? Is it Marner's team or Matthews' team? You know, and I think it's a healthy contest because they're both highly skilled players. It's not like having one really good guy and then no one else to kind of match up to him.
Well, and how about this? Okay, like I mean, a lot of times you can have it where you know Yager and Lemieux, these guys are tagging up points for a long time because they're playing together. You know, you got a lot of that with a lot of different players, and I'm not taking anything away from anyone. But Marner and Matthews, aside from a few games last year and the few games this season so far, primarily have gotten many of those points apart, unless on the power play together. You know, like think about it. Matthews, if I'm not mistaken, leads the league in 5-on-5 goals in the last 3 years. And he doesn't play 5-on-5 minutes with Marner. Now he does. So that's kind of a neat thing to think that we had two solid lines, two motors, putting up that kind of points and not necessarily on the same stat line, you know, on each other's goals. I know that they've got a lot, but they're not line mates. They're now, but you know what I mean.
For most of the career, they weren't, right? For like leading up to recent history, they weren't line mates. They were always separated. Like that first year Tavares was in Toronto, it was him and Marner, right? And Matthews was on the other line. So it is amazing for as much time as they weren't together, how closely similar their careers are in terms of points, right? The other thing we got out of today's game, how do you think of Jack Campbell? I think he looked good, man, today.
He looked great, buddy. I mean, I say looked great. I got a full disclosure. I was listening to the game on the radio. Shout out to Joe Bowen and Jim Ralph too. And I'll tell you, that was a great game by the sounds of it. And Jack Campbell, I mean, it sounds like he had some stellar saves. I know there was only a couple in not too much work in the first, but the saves that he did make sound like they were huge. And you know, I'm not a fan of Matthew Tkachuk, and I think I'm going to realize that more this year. I only saw him once or twice a year before this. Now I'm going to see him a lot. I'm actually going to gain this rivalry, you know, like you've got that Flames jersey up there and it might have Tkachuk on the back, and I hope it doesn't, but if it does, then it would, you know, who knows, man. Like this guy's going to become public enemy number one if he's pulling stuff like that.
Yeah, but you know what the thing is, man? You take him on your team any day of the week. He is awesome, and like He has scored some of the best goals ever, man. Like, he scored an in between his legs overtime goal last year against Nashville. It was one of the best goals of the year. And he's a throwback, man. He's a throwback where he has, he's mouthy, he's physical, and he has the skill to back it up.
Listen, man, I mean, I know pests go a long way, and the guys like that, like I heard a saying once, give me the 3 players that you hate the most in the league, and I'll try to at least trade for one of them, you know? And it's true. Like, who do you hate playing against? And that's who you want to go get, and I mean, I can't stand him on the other team, but to be fair, in all fairness, like if we're really be honest with each other, I don't like dirty play. And I do think that he does a lot of borderline and crosses the line. I haven't had a chance to watch it. I'm sorry. I will after we're done this podcast, but I was listening to it and Bowen went nuts when Tkachuk jumped on the back of Campbell at the last end of the game there. Like, you should have heard Bowen. He was losing his mind. He's like, put that back on. I want to see that. And he's like, of course they wouldn't put it on. I have to watch a Calgary feed.
Man, we would love him if he was on the Leafs. Like, I'm not even trying to over exaggerate how good he is. And the thing is, his brother is on Ottawa, and his brother will probably be better than him, and we're going to see him all the time.
I know, and we need players like that. And listen, like I wish more than anyone that Nazem Kadri didn't make such bonehead moves in his series, back-to-back series against Boston. Because anyone that says, oh, wouldn't he look good on the team right now? You're damn right he'd look good on the team right now, but that wasn't an option. He got himself traded out of town. And anyone that wants to try to look back at it in another way, that's what happened. I mean, like if Dubois brought him back and that happened again, can you imagine? You imagine? Like, Dubois would have been the laughing stock of the league. Like, they would have been like, what did you think? The guy's done it twice before. Why would you think it wouldn't happen again? But I'll tell you right now, I wish he didn't do that, because I'd love to have Naz on this team right now.
And I think that's what Wayne Simmonds is trying to bring to the team, that little bit of edge and that little bit of feistiness. But like, Simmonds is a smarter player than Kadri when it comes to that stuff. Like, he knows where the line is, and like Kadri just crossed the line literally one too many times. Right?
He did. Just lost his head,
Yeah.
And I mean, I love seeing the guy that gets kissed by Don Cherry. That guy shouldn't get shipped out of town. That just shouldn't happen. But it did happen because it had to happen.
Well,
damn it.
Yeah. Well, speaking of stupid decisions, could you believe the schedule today that the NHL put out? It's Championship Sunday in the NFL, and for those of you who don't know, today's the day which determines who's going to the Super Bowl. The NHL today has 11 games scheduled throughout the day. Tomorrow, there's one game. One game.
So, like, I don't even know. And, like, you go ahead, man. I just don't know.
It's just, like, they knew that today was Championship Sunday in the NFL. The NHL is always saying that they're this, they're trying to grow the game and they're trying to be more popular in the States, especially. Why would you do it on a day like today? Like the Leaf game, for example, it was on 4:00 Eastern Standard Time. If there's any day to put the Leaf game on at 10:00 Eastern, it's today. The football games would be over. You're going to get your ratings. Instead, they put it up against one of the championship games. Like, how? It just doesn't make any sense to me.
No, me either. I mean, like, and if you have to play games, if you have to, like you said, the NFL had their schedule already running when the NHL put their schedule together. Like, it was already done on paper. Like, what are we going against on this Sunday in the end of January? Probably NFL, so it's pretty wild.
It's mind-numbingly stupid, in my opinion.
Like, you could have even put your games on. So let's start a handful of them at noon so that you're done by 2:30 or 3, because the kickoff for the football game was 3:05, right? The football game ends at 6, and then you've got the next football game starts at 6:40, goes through to the 9:30, 10 o'clock. So then you have everyone on the West Coast that could start at 9:30 or 10:30 on your regular nights. Do it on that night. No games played in between that 3 o'clock end and 9:30 or 10:30 start time. And like, I don't know, I'm brutal at scheduling. I have trouble scheduling 5 guys at my workplace, so to schedule an entire NHL, I bet you it's hard, but I'm pretty sure that this was easy to see.
Oh, for sure. And I think this year, I'm going to give them an extra hard time this year because with it being minimal to no crowds, it is a TV product this year. Don't go against other TV juggernauts, right? Like it just is, to me, it makes business sense. But I guess what
Hey,
do I know, man?
you want to know something? That's actually a really good point. I mean, because a lot of people were giving a hard time about seeing, logos and advertisements on the helmet saying, "Oh, well, they're making extra money." Well, they're not actually making extra money. They're trying to compensate money that the advertisers felt they weren't getting, and it's really just to appease the current advertisers. It's not getting anything extra on their helmets. So I could only imagine how they would feel if they've got a $5 million spot for this game, for the NFL games, or a sponsorship to that, and they've also got their product competing against it.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be frustrated.
Oh, yeah.
But
Hey,
I
man.
guess this at this time, you know what I mean? It's
Mhm,
this is where it's going to, sometimes you're not going to get everything right. You're
mhm.
just not.
You're not, and that's it. I guess like maybe we're overreacting. We should give them a bit of a break. But at the same time, man, they could have scheduled mostly North Division games today, and think like, hey, it's the Canadian audience versus the American audience. But they didn't do that.
That would have been a cool study too. I mean, I still think the NFL wins because the
Oh,
NFL it just does.
yeah,
And it's not saying that the NHL is not as good or as popular. It's that Sundays, people have their Sundays all sorted out. And it's don't compete
yep,
against Sundays because they've already have it sorted out.
yeah, exactly. Well, speaking of the divisional play and stuff, how do you like the divisional play in the NHL this year?
Okay, I can't actually lie to you. I get nervous a little bit, tiny bit. I love it. I think that it's going to be intense, man. But I don't know if I realized how intense it was going to be and going to get. And I don't think I still do. And I don't think anyone really does. The referees, the league, they're going to have a handle on this. This is the first time in all of these players' careers that they're going to see matchup after matchup against each other. We're in game one against Calgary, and we've got Matthew Tkachuk jumping on the back of our goaltender, and then they're pushing and shoving at the whistle. There was no time for that game for there to be any kind of retribution. That's just going to be bad blood boiled over and talked about in the media, bubbled up a little for game two. How does game
Mm-hmm.
6 and 7 look with any of these teams? And this is Toronto Calgary. This isn't one of the rivalries. This isn't Toronto Montreal. I think that we're going to have 6 or 7. Like, we've got an entire division. It's a divisional rivalry, and it's unbelievable for a fanfare. It's going to be very intense, like very intense.
Yeah, I gotta say, man, I agree with you again, man. I really do like them playing, especially against like the West Coast teams, because we just don't see them very often in regular season, right? Like how many Vancouver games, Calgary games, Edmonton games, Winnipeg games do we get to see? And the truth is, unless we stay up really late, one a season, right? And it's just the way it is. But I do think a problem with this divisional play is I have no idea what's going on in the other teams. Unless it's big news, man, I don't track like Colorado anymore or Buffalo anymore or the Rangers, right? Like there's so many teams that I'm just kind of like, whatever. They're other leagues.
They are other leagues. It's just general interest that you're going to look at things at this point. You know what I mean? Like, and general interest being like, really just to kill some time. I mean, I looked at the standings. I was just curious to see how's Buffalo doing, and I only did that to think Jack Eichel, Taylor Hall, how's that working
Mm-hmm.
out for them? I saw them at the bottom of the division again. I thought Buffalo,
Yeah.
like I just feel for you, And let's be serious here. You're right. I don't know a lot of what's going on in them. I'm going to pay a bit more attention as I go, but in all fairness, I feel like I'm getting to know a new league right now, just watching our teams, and there's not a lot of off nights, so I don't have to kill a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have to watch other games. Like, I can actually kind of check in on our own division, see what's going on, because they're all important.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really happy to see that the Leafs are doing well, but I'm blown away to see that Montreal still has a 0 on their loss column in regulation, man.
Yeah, yeah, man. It is. They have been tearing it up, and I don't know if Montreal is that good or if Vancouver is that bad. And I guess we're gonna find out soon when the Leafs do play the Canucks. But it is something, man. They can't ask for a better start. Like technically, we're through 10% of the season, and they haven't lost a game yet.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
mean, they've got to be very happy. And as a fan base there, I hope they're excited. And let's be serious. I mean, I take a little bit of pleasure when I see Montreal lose this and that, but at the end of the day, seeing as where this season's rolling and where the train tracks are leading, this season's better if Toronto and Montreal are both good.
oh, absolutely. And I think it would benefit us because like we've never seen them play in the playoffs.
The closest we got robbed by Gretzky's high stick on Gilmore.
Yeah.
That's the closest.
That's the closest we've got in our lifetimes, which is in '93, which is just crazy to think. But
and it didn't happen.
Yep, it didn't happen. And you know what the reality is for me, I would say the Leafs' biggest rivalry is Ottawa, because we had all those years of the Leafs versus Ottawa, and even that the Leafs won 4 times in a row, so it's not even really a rivalry, right? It's
No,
the way
it's
yeah, it's like the way Boston looks at Toronto, and like we're like, yeah, it's a rivalry. Boston's like, no, it's not. We just beat you all the time.
and that's what I was just about to say. Like in my head, Boston's more of the rivalry, but really it's Boston's our mountain. You know what I mean? And we were Ottawa's mountain. And like the Battle of Ontario, it's really taken a side note for the last better part of 5 to 10 years, if we're really to be honest. 15.
Yeah. Well, the thing is like you both have to be good, and like you said about Montreal and Toronto, this season is important to them. It's because they're both good, and if they meet in the playoffs, that's great, right? And like it'll be fantastic theater for us. You know, going down the home stretch when they play each other, how important these games are. It's going to be awesome to see.
100%. Well, I wanted to just take a second here. I want to look up the standings. Like if I know that we're only 10% of the way through, but like this is the kind of stuff that I feel like I get excited about. I'm excited for the next game. I don't have to get too far ahead, but I'm excited for this whole 1 year experience. Our top 4 teams are sitting Montreal, Toronto, Winnipeg, Calgary. Okay. And I mean, like that's obviously it's going to move all year. We're 6 games in, 3 games in on a few of them. Edmonton's sitting on 5th. Like we've got the potential of literally seeing a Montreal, Toronto, a Calgary, Edmonton. I'm just saying, like, man, it's just going to be fun. And no matter who we play, like, look at that game 1 with Calgary. If we had to go and play the season, like, if we had to play them in a 7-game set, I don't even know, man. Who the hell knows? This season's going to be intense. The refs are going to, honestly, they're going to have their hands full. They're going to have to keep the game clean.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, and they need to do it from the get-go, and then especially when those teams are rolling in, and they're not only playing back-to-back, they're playing 3 in a row. There's going to be some hate developing by the time they play the 3rd game.
There's going to be bullseyes. There's going to be, look who just went on the ice. You need to go on now. Go get them. You know what I mean? And that's going to be on every team going after somebody else. Like, yeah, this is going to be a dogfight to the end. I'm really happy to see that we're banking some points 10% into the year, because points earned now is less stress later. So let's just keep going. Let's keep putting 2 points away every night like we're doing. It's exciting right now. They're playing a good brand of hockey.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Scott, man. This season is going to be pretty awesome from end to end. Let's move on to, our favorite segment of the show, This Day in Hockey History. January 24th, 2018, William Nylander scored on a penalty shot 6 seconds into overtime, gave the Leafs a 3-2 win against the Chicago Blackhawks in Chicago. So what makes that important is that Nylander matched the NHL record for fastest regular season overtime goal, and only accomplished by Sundin, David Legwand, Alexander Ovechkin, and Andreas Athanasiou. He's in the record books, man. We have a guy on the Leafs right now in the record books.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That is pretty sweet. Now, Wes, I'm going to throw this out there out of just left field. I saw a picture on the wall, and I just had to tell you about this, man. So there was a picture I saw of the last draw taken at Maple Leaf Gardens. I don't know if I've ever talked to you about this, but there was 2 guys. I mean, it was Toronto against Chicago. That was the last game at the Gardens. Matt Sundin took the draw for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Do you have any idea who the other person was in the draw for the ceremonial draw in that game of Toronto against Chicago, last game at the Gardens?
I'm just going to guess Michael Nylander.
This makes for a great trivia question. The last 2 guys to take the draw was Matt Sundin from the Toronto Maple Leafs and Doug Gilmour from the Chicago Blackhawks. And I think that's fitting. It's exactly who should take the draw there But anyways, I just thought that was an interesting photo I wanted to share with you.
Yeah, man, that is pretty good. Yeah, I wish I knew that answer. I should know that answer.
Mm-hmm.
I
didn't know that answer before I looked at that photo, so I'm not going to claim any kind of high and mightiness to this. I just thought it was a really neat thing to see.
Oh, for sure, man. All right, well, coming up this week, another game against the Flames, man. 9:00 on Tuesday. Do you think it's going to be a little rougher than today's game?
Yes, I do. I think that you're going to see guys getting a little bit of runs, and I think that it might get the Leafs need to show that we stand up for our goaltender. You're going to hear that in the dressing room after the game because it was fresh, and I think that that's going to carry into the game big time. I think that it'll set the tone. I think that the ref will throw a lot of bodies into the penalty box in the first and hope that it just kind of cools off, or depending on how you like to watch the game, heats up a bit more. I think it'll be a great game, man. It'll be hot.
I think so too, man. I'm loving these back-to-backs because it always seems like whoever wins the first game, the other team needs to come out that much stronger in the second game because they don't want to be swept.
Right? You can't lose four. You can't go down 4 points back to back. You can't do that. That's an 8-point swing essentially.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think it's going to be interesting, man. I think the Flames are one of the better teams in the division. So, it's my Flame bias, but it is what it is. Like it's going to be a hell of a game, and let's not the Leafs are a really good team, and I picked them to win the division this year, but no team is going to run away with this division.
No, I don't think so either. I think that we'll have some pretty solid teams up top. I think that you'll have three teams. I think you'll have a pack of 3, and then we're going to have a pack of 4 fighting for that last spot. I maybe underestimated Ottawa a little bit. I'll give them that. Okay. I didn't know what to expect with them. And I just maybe was just remembering the dumpster fire that's been for the last few years and didn't give the credit where credit was due because they haven't made a good decision in years. Yeah. But it looks like they've done a few here. So good for them because it's making for some pretty fun hockey.
Mm-hmm. Well, fair enough, man. That's about it for me tonight. Do you have anything else you want to just get off your chest before we wrap up the show?
No, bud, the Bills game's on. We got to get off the air. So I hope that everybody enjoys the rest of this one. And Wes, if you don't mind taking us home, good night to everybody here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you like what you see and what you hear, please like and subscribe. Follow us on Twitter @BlueCollarHT. And have a good night, everyone.